a whole new Disney World.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Retroland. Today we'll be going over the history of Horizons at Epcot Center. As I mentioned in the last episode, the 1964 New York World's Fair was a very important event in the history of the Disney theme parks. Most notably, the time at the fair inspired Walt's idea of Epcot, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, which would act as a city full of residents that would showcase the newest innovations in technology. Epcot in its original form would not be created, however, because Walt would die before construction began on Walt Disney World. In the late 70s, the Walt Disney Company was looking for ideas to create a second gate to Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World. While they were brainstorming, they came back to Walt's idea for Epcot and decided to theme the second park after it. The park would feature two distinct lands. The first would be called World Showcase and feature several pavilions representing different countries and their culture. The second land was known as Future World and would feature several pavilions based off of different concepts of the future and science. It would showcase new technology as well as rides and attractions that would teach guests as well as entertain them. Similarly to the World's Fair, most of the pavilions in Future World would operate under the sponsorship model. Under this system, a company would help fund the creation of a pavilion and its attractions, and Disney would in turn advertise for the company in the attraction and around the park. This system allowed Disney to create a bigger, better attraction, but also meant that the sponsor had some say in the final product. One of these companies was General Electric, who had worked with Disney at the 1964 World's Fair. They had sponsored the Carousel of Progress, which at the time of Epcot's planning had recently been moved to the Magic Kingdom. General Electric had originally proposed a ride that would focus on Thomas Edison and his inventions, but this concept was eventually scrapped so that the ride could be more appealing to a global audience. Eventually, the concept had changed to focus on the future of the world as it was imagined in the past and how it was predicted at the current time. The ride was considered to be a spiritual successor to the Carousel of Progress due to the similarities in tone and theme. The original name for the ride was Century 3 to represent America entering its third century in the year 2076, which is what year the ride would take place. This name was later changed to Future Probe because global audiences might not understand the significance of the name. The name was again changed to Horizons because of the medical connotations of the word probe. Construction on the pavilion started in August of 1981 and cost $60 million to complete. Horizons opened to the public on October 1st, 1983, on the one-year anniversary of Epcot's opening. The ride system itself was an omnimover vehicle similar to the Haunted Mansion, however it was suspended from the ceiling, similar to Peter Pan's Flight. The vehicle also featured a sound system for each individual rider, and a set of buttons to be used in the final scene of the ride. Horizons was split into two sections. The first was called Looking Back at Tomorrow, and showcased the future as predicted in the past. The second was called 21st Century Living, and showed how modern technology could be used to create the future of tomorrow. You would start the ride off by entering the Future Port and boarding your ride vehicle. You were then told by your host that your destination is the 21st century. You then enter the Looking Back at Tomorrow sequence. The first show scene shows Jules Verne the moon shot from the Earth to the Moon, as well as the moon from George Méliès' A Trip to the Moon. The next scene is a representation of Paris in the 1950s as imagined in the 1800s, based on the work of Albert Robida. The next and most iconic scene is Easy Living. It shows the future as predicted in the 1930s, with a robot butler dusting and vacuuming, another robot grooming a man's hair, and a chef robot doing dishes in the kitchen. This scene also includes the song There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow as a nod to the Carousel of Progress. The next scene is looking back at tomorrow through the films of yesteryear, and shows clips from several classic films such as A Trip to the Moon, Buck Rogers, and Magic Highways. The final scene of Looking Back at Tomorrow shows the future of the 1950s, with a neon city with bustling intersections and highways. Guests would then pass by movie screens which would show a short demonstration of advancements in technology at the time, such as ocean mining, microprocessors, and understanding the DNA chain. We then start 21st Century Living. The scene shows the narrator and his wife in their home, with the husband playing music with the dog sitting next to him, and his wife video calling their daughter on the phone. We're told that their daughter is working on a desert farm, and that with today's transportation, they're just minutes away from their kids. The next scene takes place on the desert farm of Mesa Verde, where the narrator's daughter is working on a farm using voice control to operate machines from a control booth. We're shown a vast farm landscape in the desert, and the scent of oranges is wafted into the room. Several machines are working in the farm, and we're told that technology has allowed farmers to turn the harsh desert into fertile farmland. We're then shown the narrator's son-in-law baking a cake using voice activation technology to tell the fridge which ingredients he needs. Next, we see the narrator's granddaughter video calling with her boyfriend who's working on his underwater ship. We pass by both sides of the conversation as we transition from the desert to the sea colony. Next, we pass a class of children in the sea colony who are going over their safety procedures with their teacher and Rover the seal. As the narrator tells us about all of the new underwater industries like mining and mariculture, we pass an undersea restaurant where people are eating their meals and looking at the sea life. The narrator then tells us how seawater is a great source of energy and kelp is a good low-cost fuel as we see vehicles mining and harvesting on the sea floor. We then swiftly transition from sea to outer space as we view a space station being worked on by astronauts and giant models of spacecraft. We pass a man on an exercise bike and a family floating around in zero gravity, as well as floating space crystals that are used for industry back on Earth. We then go to the narrator's grandson's birthday, where the family appears as holograms and sing him happy birthday. Lastly, you enter a sequence where the writers vote on which future will take them to the exit of the ride by pressing one of the buttons on their ride vehicles. The guests then decide if their future will be undersea, space, or desert. After the future is chosen, a 30-second video made using scale models of futuristic settings is then projected in front of the guests as they return to Futureport. After you return to the present, you'd get off the ride and exit the pavilion. Over time, Horizons grew extremely popular, especially on the early internet, with several fan sites dedicated to discussing the ride. On September 30th, 1993, General Electric's contract to sponsor Horizons expired, and they decided not to renew it. This would lead to the demise of the attraction. Without a sponsor, Horizons was not able to receive routine maintenance, and was starting to wear down. A sinkhole had formed under the pavilion and was causing safety concerns for guests. This is thought to be the main reason for GE not renewing, and Disney leaving the attraction in a state of disrepair. The ride originally closed in December of 1994, but reopened in December of 1995 to deal with the crowds while World of Motion was being remodeled to Test Track and Universe of Energy was being remodeled to Ellen's Energy Adventure. Horizons would then only run seasonally until January 9th, 1999, when it permanently closed. After its closure, the props were removed and the building was left vacant until July of 2000 when demolition began on the building. On August 15, 2003, Mission Space opened to the public. It was a motion simulator ride that used the G-forces to simulate space travel. Many Horizons fans were underwhelmed, to say the least. Over the years, Horizons has become one of the most infamous cult classic Disney attractions. In the years since its closure, many more Horizons communities have threaded up to reminisce about this amazing ride. Disney has made an effort to keep Horizons in our memories as well. Mission Space has several references to Horizons in the form of its logo appearing several times in the queue. In 2007, the Robot Butler from Easy Living was put on display for Epcot's 25th anniversary. The Robot Butler was also in Walt Disney One Man's Dream until 2017 when it was removed. In 2009, Space Mountain was refurbished, and its pre-show added several scenes reminiscent to that in Horizon. These included a futuristic skyline and a scene with a robot butler. In Tokyo Disneyland Star Tours, all of the final model scenes from Horizons are shown unedited as advertisements for alien planets. Finally, one of the desert ships from Mesa Verde can still be seen at Disney's Hollywood Studios at the Backlot Express restaurant. I personally am quite sad that I'll never be able to experience Horizons, as it is one of the most impressive rides Disney has ever made. I can only hope that Disney makes an effort to recapture the magic from Horizons in the future. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that if you can dream it, you can do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.